Well, okay. I think I've covered the major things. Let's move on to the extra things that I wanted to talk about. Starting with building buildings. Like houses, forts, towers, villages, roads. Well, roads aren't really building, but this is something I've always wanted. Not everybody really cares, but when exploring or going off to other places, you constantly have to come back. You don't get to, there's no warfare, so, why should they allow you to build forts or towers or things like that? Any defensive mechanism for warfare points. But no, they don't allow you to do that because few games even have warfare. They make their own towers for you anyway. Some of them aren't really defensible or at all useful. You could see farther, I guess, but not really useful at all. A lot of the problems that have come up with buildings in the past is, one, they make them indestructible, so you can't destroy them, and then they allow people to build them pretty much anywhere in any fashion, so you just get, outside these cities or in these places, just a bunch of buildings all over next to each other as close as can be, packed in, and they're indestructible, and so you can't get through them. It becomes chaos. It's quite horrible. They get in the way. People are basically abusing any advantage there is with the house, whether they get money from it or whatever, so they just build crap loads, and it makes the place look horrible wherever it is, and it's not really worth it to anybody to do that anymore. There's not enough space in most of these places anyway, because no one's doing this infinite or at least an extremely large world. No one's doing that, so there's very little space even to put buildings for 1 million people in one server that just cram together, which is another thing I don't like. But because of that, they can't allow buildings. They have the other changes. They can, but they don't know how because they haven't done it yet. Another thing is, with the buildings, you have to make them destructible. They have to be able to be burned or knocked down or taken over or whatever. Because if you're just able to make these indestructible things of doom everywhere, people, they'll pop up everywhere and they'll never go away, no matter how long it is. They won't cripple and stuff like that. You should have them able to decay and cripple if no one's using them, or to burn down if someone's attacking, or to break down if they're breaking down with the door, or battering rams or catapults that you're actually allowed to use finally, or whatever. But when you get that working, you should be able to knock these things down, and you should be able to repair them as well, or even build them up. And it should be smart, not like, you could allow one guy to build the whole thing. Let's say a tower. You could allow one guy to build the whole thing, but he still needs to get all the supplies there somehow. He still needs to build it. It takes longer. Whereas if you have multiple people building, like a party of people, they could build it much faster. And I don't know, maybe you have like a special architect skill that you could add in. That could be cool. The better the architect, the better the type of building they can make or whatever. Now, for your personal house, whether some raiders come in and destroy it, that would kind of suck. So you should be able to make like little houses that you can rebuild quickly. Or if you have a bigger house or cabin or whatever, you can have like, the bigger the house, there's like an automatic guard or an automatic keeper at that house that can either defend it or run off, see who's attacking, run off and tell somebody, and then warrants can go out for their death or arrest or whatever, so you can know who did it, or so that maybe you could even catch them if the warning's quick enough to you. Things like that. You can build up other guards instead of just making people's buildings indestructible. You can make the house for going off into the wilderness and like you're gathering supplies or things out there, or you just don't want to go all the way back to store things. You can have your house out there. Use it for that advantage. Or if other people know that you're there getting stuff, they will also show up at a certain like trade route or spot, and the game should be like could be smart enough to know that when there's enough people in a certain area, that NPCs automatically show up, make their own buildings, stores, banks, whatever, and also they'll start to build roads to these new places, so the towns form based on where the people decide to go. Well, at least, more towns form as, the general population expand out. And you do that, that would be quite impressive and interesting. And fun. It'd be the people actually making changes to the game instead of, only developers getting to make changes to the game. Also, if you could make, different types, not everybody making the same looking building, not everybody making the same looking frickin' tower, not all the towers are the same, not all the buildings or the roads are the same, because that gets really boring really quick and looks quite ununique. I mean, have you ever driven through a neighborhood in real life where every single house was the same exact design? Kind of makes a disgusting neighborhood, doesn't it? Well, I think so anyway. And as far as limiting people to making buildings, I don't know if you should limit them to making buildings, but you could make it so you can limit them to a certain amount. You don't want them to go over crazy, but you could also put in that decay and crippling thing if they don't use it. They had made a house, in one area, but don't go to it, and for months it starts to cripple and decay. Somebody else could come in and take it over. The guard leaves, whatever. You could use that method instead of just limiting them to a small amount that they can build. But back to the customizing things, especially with towers or forts or any type of fortification that you make. You could have it higher up so you can see farther. You can make it out of stone instead of wood, which means you'd have to get stone to build it. And doing that, it can't be burned down or knocked down as easily anymore. You can have it, like in World of Warcraft, have that, sleep advantage, the experience advantage if you stay there. You could have it produce extra things at forts, like if you go there, you can get free arrows that are made regularly by an NPC that automatically pops up whenever you make a certain type of fort, things like that. That'd be cool, like get your weapon sharpened or whatever. But you can really take this idea and run with it in just about any way you want to, but it's not being done mostly for the reason that the maps aren't big enough or whatever. But when they are, or when you can do this, you should, because it can really help add to the game.